C15 version Golden Black Live. Coach Dave Shondell, Kyle Charters, you can read, so therefore you know who they are. Dave Shondell is a living legend, but he doesn't want to think, he doesn't own up to that notion. But welcome to the show, Coach. I know you get only the fact that you've already played a match today. You've done more before noon today than most coaches do on Friday any day. But you had a successful match, winning this afternoon, and then you play again tonight against your brother right at 7:30.
Yeah, we got started this morning at 10 o'clock and had a nice crowd over there. I really appreciate the fan base.
You get students to come? I mean,
it wasn't a ton of students. They were in school. It is Purdue. And, so they were in class, but we had some elementary students that showed up, a good group of them, and then some of the veteran supporters of Purdue Athletics. And actually, South Dakota brought a good group, which surprised me. And then right after us, Ball State and Notre Dame played, so those people were there. So we probably had close to 1,000 people for a 10 o'clock match. That's pretty good.
I'd say that's very good from that standpoint.
You take on your brother tonight, Steve, at Ball State. You've done that a couple times before. Does it hold any extra meaning, or at this point, status quo or same as usual?
I don't think it means quite as much. As you get older, you realize that it's really not about you or him. There's a lot of other things that are more important, like a job, security. But you know, we probably competed against each other 50 times. You go back to high school, all those years when he was at Burris and I was at Daleville, then Muncie Central, and it always seemed like he had better players than I did back then when he was at the machine, Muncie Burris, and now we probably have higher ranked recruits anyway, but he's an excellent coach. He's done a great job at Ball State since he has been there. They will contend in the MAC. He's really young, and they're about 500 right now, but he's played a good schedule. So, but it'll be fun. It's nice to, when you're from Muncie, to see a lot of Muncie people come over and get a chance to see some people you haven't seen for a while.
Okay, how the show works, you can send us your questions, and we'll read them. If we can use them on air, we'll use them, and that's always a fun part. We also want to thank our sponsors: Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, XXX, and of course Basham Reynolds for all their support of our show. You're off to a 7-2 start, and yet I guess all coaches want to be 9-0, but how do you feel like you're coming along to date? Are you on schedule, or where do you think you are?
Well, if you're 7-2, you don't feel like you're on schedule. In our situation, we have enough experience back that we ought to be a little better than that. But I think the fact that we are 7-2 lets us know we're not good enough yet. And I told him that the other day. If we were 8-0, we'd probably be ranked 5th or 6th in the country, and we'd be feeling really good about who we are. Instead, we were 6-2 at that point in time, and lost to two good teams.
BYU, right? Miami.
BYU, who's 7th or 8th in the country, and Miami, who's going to be a top 25 team very soon. But we realize we got a lot of work to do. We're not playing at the level that we need to play at, and we are young in some spots. We have a first-year setter, Ashley Evans. She's a sophomore, but this is her first year of setting, running the show, like being the quarterback on the team. So that's a work in progress, but she's doing a great job. I've got no complaints about what she's doing. We have a freshman backcourt player, Brooke Peters, who's getting better all the time, but she's a freshman. And Alexa Smith, who's the great player out of Colorado, is still she's a freshman, and she's had arm problems. I had a surgery over the off season, so but she's playing a lot. So we're still trying to put pieces together and get people to play with great confidence and make it happen on the floor.
You see flashes of what you want to see?
I see really good stuff in practice on a regular basis. We haven't done it for crowds of thousands yet. We've done it for in our own gym where it's very comfortable, and we're playing against people that maybe we're better than. But I think it will happen. This is a very likable team, but that doesn't mean the NCAA committee is going to smile on you because you're likable and you train hard and you do all the right things. So it's very young. I said that the other day. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and if we get wrapped up about 2 losses that we feel like we shouldn't have at this point, we're going to have some real stress moving forward, and stress doesn't help us get better. So we need to relax and keep positive and do the best we can.
Go ahead.
The committee owes you one, though, don't they?
Not necessarily. You've been around long enough to know that they normally get it right, and volleyball has been very, very good to me and my family and Purdue, and we have to just do a better job.
That's the PC answer, right?
That's the right answer. But in that experience, what did you learn from that experience just in terms of how things ended last year? I mean, you talk about dealing with stress and the fact that you were at a point and it just didn't go as – it's so competitive in the Big Ten that there's no margin for error. Was it as simple as that in your view?
Well,
looking back at it now.
Looking back at it, a lot of it was that we didn't play well in our last 3 matches, but there were 3 matches we could have lost if we'd have played well.
Yeah.
They were on the road. Minnesota, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. All 3 really good teams that are their hard places to win. You look back at it, you just hope that the teams you play, that you schedule, have good seasons.
Yeah.
Because what happened last year with the RPI is many teams that traditionally were good teams were not good last year.
Yeah.
But when we scheduled them 2 years ago, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that's the negative about the RPI. You know, all they look at, the biggest factor is your opponent's record. That's bigger than your record, your opponent's record. And we had some teams that bottomed out last year, and at the end of the day, that was it. We were 22-10. We finished 5th in the Big Ten. That was good enough to get in, but our opponent's record just dropped our RPI number down significantly to where we were on the bubble and we didn't get the phone call.
Yeah.
Big Ten's pretty good, huh? I mean, is this the best? I think I didn't look at the top 25 this week, but there's been eight
teams in,
and 4 of those are in the top
10.
Yeah.
And there's 2 that are between 26 and 35. So there's 10 teams that are all in the top 35 in the country, and that doesn't surprise me because we were young a year ago, and I knew that this was going to be a banner season for the Big Ten, and so you've got that to look forward to as well. So but again, we're trying to stay relaxed and trying to stay positive, because if our coaching staff can send the right message, then our players are going to respond. And you can't get wrapped up in the things that you can't control. We can't control what kind of record South Dakota is going to have the rest of the season, or Ball State, or Notre Dame, or even the Big Ten. All you can do is control what you do every day, and if we keep working hard in practice, we've got really talented kids. We just got to keep coming together and make the thing work.
You go back and obviously you start after this week, and I know you're not looking past your next 2 matches. Of course, Purdue plays Ball State tonight, 7:30 tomorrow night. Notre Dame is at 8 p.m. after football, so you'll have time to wind down after the Purdue's upset of Virginia Tech, and you'll go right into that. But Big Ten play starts next week on the road, and it just is going to be a grind week in, week out. How do you keep them? How do you keep some level of balance knowing that you're going to be in the meat grinder week in and week out?
Well, it's really, when you schedule your practices, you have to keep all that in mind.
Yeah.
Like, we'll come back on Monday. We won't practice very hard Monday. We've had 3 matches in 2 days. We have Sunday off, obviously. Monday, we'll bring in some of the players that didn't play a lot, train them a little bit harder, do some serve pass, some routine stuff, watch some tape. Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll train hard. Thursday, we'll taper back, because we're going to leave and fly up to Ann Arbor, and then you're going to practice Ann Arbor in the morning on Friday and play them that night, and then jump in a plane or jump in a bus and go to East Lansing and do it all over again. And those teams are both very, very capable of beating us. I think Michigan's ranked 20th this week.
Yeah.
Michigan State dropped out of the rankings with some losses that were a little bit unexpected, but 2 athletic, physical, competitive teams.
Yeah, and Penn State still. Penn State. I mean, the top end of this league is just is there a way? Do you ever you talk about teams like Michigan State that drop out and come and go, but do you see this top 10 that they're not going anywhere? They're going to be in the top 4 of the league, you think?
Well, Penn State is the Goliath. They're kind of the misnomer. They are the best team in the country, and they have been. But after that, there's a lot of movement. There's only 5 undefeated teams in the country right now, which is really unusual after 3 weekends to only have 5 teams that are unbeaten. But you're finding, because of this RPI deal, that you're forced to play a lot of really, really good teams, and therefore there are some losses early on. But I think there's some parity in volleyball. I mean, Penn State would argue that, and they can. But really, Stanford's very good, and Texas has been very good. But I think this year, I think Nebraska's maybe ranked 4th. Wisconsin and Illinois are both right up in the hunt there. So it's going to be tough. But we got a lot of those good teams at home this year. Like last year, we played Nebraska and Illinois only once, and they were on the road. This year, we get those 2 teams at home, and I think that will be, if we're playing well, that will be fun volleyball.
Yeah.
You feel like it's nationally hit a growth spurt here recently with TV and And with the tournament, I think the tension, as unfortunate it was for you guys, some attention was drawn to the fact that you guys were left out of the tournament last year.
But volleyball's blowing up.
Yeah.
And not just at the college level, but at the junior level, club level, high school level. It's now the largest sport in the country for women. More people are playing volleyball than any other sport in the country, and they're loving it. It's a great team game. It's a social sport. And at the college level, every night of the week you can find something on TV, because there's so many channels nowadays. And back in the day, you could never find women's or men's volleyball on TV, but now you can. And a lot of the great athletes that sometimes were picking basketball, they're certainly giving every bit of attention to volleyball if they were, basketball.
We've talked before about the role the Big Ten Network has played in recruiting. And that's hard to minimize. I mean, in terms of the fact that you have so many matches, and again, is there a direct correlation in your view to? I mean, the Big Ten's always been pretty darn salty, but it's really gotten to a new level. Do you think there's a real correlation there? Do you still believe that, or do you?
Well, the Big Ten Network is saving the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Not that when I say saving, they're building it up. They're taking it to a new level. Would be a better way to describe it. And nobody's benefited more than we have at Purdue because of the financial situation currently at Purdue, that without the Big Ten Network, we wouldn't have some of the things that we're going. And as Darryl gets a football program going, then you have a great situation. But right now, we've struggled a little bit with attendance in football, and therefore, without the Big Ten Network, you're not seeing the facilities. You're not seeing a new baseball, new softball, renovations. Talk about work with football, down the road, whatever, how many $100 million that might be. But the Big Ten Network is providing that for us. But to answer your question, it's the exposure that we're getting in volleyball. There's two things. The Big Ten has always supported women's sports at a higher level than any other conference. That's a credit to the administration from way back when. And then they know that they look on TV, not only are they watching Big Ten volleyball, they're seeing anywhere from between 2,500 and 9,000 people in those venues watching the volleyball. And so that entices you. Where even the Pac-12, who is, in my opinion, the second best league, they're not getting those crowds. I mean, the University of Washington has good crowds, but you get down to UCLA and USC and even Stanford, you'll be lucky to get 1,000 people to watch those teams play.
Yeah, and that's a credit to the state of Indiana is interesting from this standpoint, and have the ability to get top talent and be able to keep it here. Is it still as dominant a state as it's been in the national scope, or is that evened out to some extent?
No, Indiana is still one of the top 4 or 5 states in the country for volleyball.
Yeah,
it's very similar to men's and probably women's basketball. There's a lot of great players, not as many as there are in Ohio or Illinois or California or Texas, but everybody's coming after them. It's the same problem. Everybody wants to know why Matt Painter's not getting every basketball player in Indiana. Well, because everybody else is coming after him.
Dave Shondell not getting every?
And you hope that you hold your own. And our reputation right now is getting us a lot of those great players. Azaria Stahl, top 20 recruit. Danielle Catino, top 10 recruit. Annie Drews, big-time recruit. So we've done pretty well at holding our own in the state of Indiana because we've got a great university, and I think Purdue is a phenomenal opportunity for women. It's a safe school with great academics and a good volleyball program with terrific support. So we have a good sell. But when Texas and Stanford and Penn State and Nebraska and those Florida are knocking on your door, you got to do a pretty good sales job to keep them here.
The good thing is you can get all those doors to open, though, right now, at least hear the spiel for the most part, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what we've done the last 8 years, we're one of the top 10 programs in the country. There's no way you can look at it any other way based on your performance in the NCAA, your performance in the Big Ten, your rankings year after year. We can tell people we're a top 10 program and moving forward with the talent. We have 9 Fab 50 recruits on our team, 9 top 50 recruits on our team right now. And you wonder, well, why are you struggling with South Dakota? Okay, well, that's a good question. Why do you have 2 losses? But it takes time to get it all to happen. But we have really good talent, and we've got good kids already committed to come here. But you're right. I mean, we can sell Purdue
Yeah.
in every fashion, and we get great help from the people in our support staff to help us do that.
We're going to start our knucklehead volleyball message board. No, we're not going to do that.
Appreciate that.
You'll never be back from that standpoint. You know, and it has been an interesting ride for you. And we talked about the similarities. You know, Purdue football is trying to get that win to get it moving around. You obviously had to change some hearts and minds. You readily, every time I ask you the question, the first thing you say is, well, it's not football, volleyball. You have a lot fewer student athletes that you're involved with. But talk about changing that mindset and what it's taken to, you know, what made Daryl Hazel's got to be thinking about and what you were thinking about when you were just starting at Purdue a few years back.
Well, one thing which I haven't shared with you, you have to do it every year.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we came in 2003 and changed the culture and everything else. Now it just rolls because you have a different team every year, and you may have 90% of your team back, but they're a year older, and now they've got different things going on, and they become a different role and things like that. So creating that positive culture in that environment in your gym and with your team is something you work on 365 days out of the year. Daryl's doing that. His staff is doing that. I mean, if you bring in any player off that football team and tell me what the difference, say what's the difference between now and 2.5 years ago, they're going to tell you that it's a culture. They all know what's going on. They've all bought into what's going on. They're all moving forward. It doesn't mean they're going to go 6-6 or 7-5. It just means they're a much better football team right now than what they were. And a lot of that is because the relationships that the coaching staff has built with those players, and those players know what the expectations are and what you do and what you don't do. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be a few flaws now and then, because we've seen that. But that happens everywhere and with every team. But I think that they are moving in the right direction, and that's the most important thing as a head coach that you can do, is develop those relationships and get the kids to buy into what you think needs to be done.
Any wins stand out to you in your first couple of years here?
Oh, I think we had some early. We beat Minnesota, who went to the Final Four that year. Mm-hmm. We beat Michigan State, who was ranked in the top 20. We went to Ohio State. They hadn't won in 20 years and went on the road at Ohio State. And that's what you need. All of a sudden, then your kids think they can play. That's what they haven't had here yet.
Right.
They haven't gotten that one break where they beat somebody. You know, they beat a Virginia Tech, or they beat one of these, a good Big Ten team, and all of a sudden they think they can play. That's the one thing. You know, when you look at that game that they played, and I wasn't there. I'm not trying to sound like an expert, but if we were coming off of a winning season, we'd probably win that game. Because we had the lead, we could win that game, and all of a sudden we just kind of got to playing, looked like we were playing not to lose instead of to win. Easy to see from a TV, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or wherever I was. But anyway, I think that they're working at it. I like the kids. I like their attitudes. I like who they are. He's done a really good job of recruiting the people that are going to fit at Purdue, and they may not be high on the rankings, but Matt Painter was the first to tell you that it's not about where they fit in the rankings. There's a school down south that's getting a lot of really good recruits in basketball, but it's not panning out real well for them. You got to get the kind of players that are going to pan out well for you, and I think that that's what they're doing a pretty good job of.
So what's key for your team here over the next couple of weeks to get on a roll before Big Ten?
I just think playing with confidence and cutting down the errors. We're making way too many errors. It's like a football team that's throwing 2 or 3 interceptions during the day, and a lot of penalties and those kind of things. We're making a lot of unfair forced errors. Annie Drews is not playing it at the level she's capable of playing at. Danielle Catino now is. Those are our two what I call franchise players. You got 2 players that everyone in the country would put in their lineup today, and those 2 are those. But we've also got some other younger players that I think have to continue to go. Azaria Stahl has to keep getting better. Lydia Dimke has to continue to get better. Faye Adelaja has been very, very solid, but she's our catalyst, and she's got to continue to play. She's undersized. It's like having a 6'5" pivot player. Sometimes it's a real problem, but if they're really, really good, you can find a way to make people play to your style of ball. So we just got to keep getting better, not press the panic button and stay positive.
You think Annie can be the best in the Big Ten? Is she going to get there?
I think the problem that I've done is I've told people she can be the best in the Big Ten, and that's part of the issue. I have a lot of confidence in Annie. Nobody wants to do it any more than she does. She really wants to be the player that we can lean on and we can go to, and our lineup has been set up. Our game is set up around that. it's like, having Rick Mount. Your game setter, he's going to shoot the ball a lot, okay? And if Rick's not shooting really well, then you may not play very well. But now we're looking at, okay, if that's not going to work on a regular basis, then we've got to be able to go this way. And this morning we went this way, and we'll see what we do tonight.
Rick's going to call in and say there was never a day
They probably
that I wasn't shooting well.
I would take Rick. I would take Rick for sure. Yeah.
Rick does make the show every
Right.
year, so we always look forward to our chat with Rick from that standpoint. And we're running a little bit short on time, but the question on the caliber of kid you have that you recruited, and there's such high academic. I mean, that's what you sell when you're at Purdue. How do you keep them? There's so much expected of them on the volleyball court, but they have other things in their lives that are important to them, and a degree program almost down the line that's going to take them somewhere when they're done. Has that become more challenging the last several years, or is that as they become more and more focused on academics, or is that kind of the way it's always been in volleyball?
I think most of your volleyball players are academically strong. They come from great families, and that's always been stressed, but it's not easy. I mean, we had some very capable players in the last couple of years that got in here as freshmen and didn't adapt as well as they should have, because they got caught up in, I got to be ready to play volleyball. I'm playing in the Big Ten. They get here on August 10th, and then August 29th they're playing in a match. And then school starts, and then they got to find out how to get to class and how you deal with what goes on outside of class. And I'm not somebody that says you can't enjoy Purdue. You're a college student, so there's certainly within specifications, you've got to be able to enjoy the whole process. And but it goes so fast, before you know it, somebody's not doing well academically, or somebody is doing things they shouldn't be doing, and then you got to try to reel them in, and it's an issue. So I think we learned a lot in the last couple of years to try to get out in front of some of those things. We got a great academic advisor, Nikki McKinney, who's on top of those guys completely, but it's up to the athletes, and that's why when you recruit players at Purdue, they better be complete. They better be the student athlete, because if not, they're going to fall behind in a hurry, because it's not easy. It is not easy. It's not where I was when I was going to college. Okay, so I'm not going to mention anything more than that. But it's a tough school, and the expectations are very, very high. And sometimes, if you're a student athlete, the expectation gets higher in the classroom for people. So, but our guys are doing a great job. Each of those incidents I talked about, the players and the team responded incredibly well, to where we've 10 years in a row have gotten that APR thing, which only 3 other schools in the country have done in the sport of volleyball. Our academic GPA has always been above a 3.25. So, we're still making it work.
Yeah, and that's impressive in its own right. Well, it is one of the best shows in town, so to speak. Purdue, Ball State tonight. There's a match proceeding. It'll be Notre Dame, South Dakota at 5:30, and you guys will take the court at 7:30 or whenever that first match is over. Then the Boilermakers tomorrow night, 8 p.m. after the Virginia Tech game. You can mosey on over to Beeland Court and watch the Boilermakers take on the Fighting Irish. So, Coach, thanks again so much for your time. We always appreciate it.
And we think we can break a record tomorrow night. They've already sold over 4,000 tickets, and last year they had about 5,000 walk up. So we're hoping to get over 10,000 people in Mackey.
That'll be Mackey.
That's right. Yeah. Very, very important tomorrow night. Mackey
Lots
Arena.
of tickets, cheap tickets, and it should be a great environment for them to enjoy.
And it is a great environment. And your home court, certainly at Beeland Court, is great as well. All right. Well, good luck to you, and thanks again so much. We will come and start with segment 2, and Kyle will stay where he is. Stacey Clarity will come in. We'll talk Purdue, Virginia Tech. Then segment 3, Aiken Adele is scheduled to join us with Brian Newbert as we start to put the finishing touches on our show here on the pre-Virginia Tech Purdue football show. We'll look forward to seeing you in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.